On any given day in Mississippi, there are more than 19,000 people locked up in custody of the Department of Corrections. It's an agency that spends hundreds of millions of dollars every year. And when you start looking at the breakdown of race behind bars, advocates like Jennifer Riley Collins with the Mississippi ACLU say there's a problem.
Disproportionately, those persons that are being incarcerated are people of color.
Digging through the numbers from the Department of Corrections in 2018 alone, from month to month, the black population consistently makes up just more than 60% of the total prison population. The white population stays at 36%. This is in a state where U.S. Census numbers show the state's population is in reverse, with 59% of Mississippians being white, 37% being black. Collins says there are many drivers behind such a high percentage. Those range from being pretrial detainees to Mississippi's criminalization of minor drug offenses. A big factor, though, is something she says happens all the time.
What is truly happening is that there is over-policing in our communities.
For Olympic athlete Tori Bowie, it's personal. What's it like not having him in your life?
It's difficult.
Her dad is part of Mississippi's black prison population.
We don't try to justify what my dad did, but the drug charge that he got sentenced is just ridiculous.
Dennis Smith went to prison in 2013 to serve a 50-year sentence for an enhanced charge of selling drugs.
I remember I was out the Olympic Training Center training, and I remember falling out on the ground and just like boo-hooing, crying because I was just confused. And I didn't know how I was going to actually continue on life without my dad.
Tori Bowie pulling away!
Even with 3 Olympic medals to her name, Bowie says she's most proud of her dad, who was in and out of her life early on and using drugs.
And something that I sat there and watched him deal with my whole life, and I'm so proud of him because he overcame it. It hurt really bad when we saw him hit that roadblock again, you know. My dad was like the power figure in the family, you know. He helped us all. He took care of us all.
As low-level offenders of all races sit in state prisons, Mississippi is making some progress. In 2014, lawmakers passed House Bill 585 to restructure sentences for some drug offenses. In the years since, there was a decline in overall prison population, but numbers started to creep back up. So this past session, lawmakers passed House Bill 387, which expands parole eligibility for nonviolent offenders. It also prevents people from being thrown in prison because they can't pay a fine, and even created a task force to look at sentencing practices. That task force met for the first time in July.
Whatever comes out of this needs to be closely, make sure that we've got something that makes sense.
If any of these reforms had been in place before your dad was sentenced, do you think it would have helped in this case?
It definitely would. I for sure believe in second chances, and if we had something in place to help, we would be setting a better example, instead of just locking them up and just throwing away the key and giving up.
Advocacy groups like the ACLU urge lawmakers to take an even closer look at extreme sentencing and enhancement laws, especially when it comes to nonviolent offenders. The ACLU even created a blueprint for smart justice report for Mississippi, which shows 1 in 5 people in state prisons are serving time for a drug offense in 2018. That report also lays out ways to reduce the state's overall prison population. Do you think state leaders would be receptive to that at all?
I think state leaders should be receptive because it's tax saving, it's cost saving.
Collins says some of that money could be spent on mental health and reentry programs to prevent people from going back to prison or showing up there in the first place.
I would like to not even have to deal with prison reform issues. I would like to see people not go to jail. Not to say that you should not be penalized if you commit a crime, but let's not lock people up for minor matters.
For folks like Bowie, who feel the impact, it's about more than just reform.
Right now, my family and I, we've just been thinking positive about everything, the past 5 years, and we're just hoping that he could come home soon.
Mike McDaniel, WDAM Investigates.